Control issues in a codependent might look like you're trying to navigate both sides of the relationship. So it's not a give and take, it's a give to get a response, or it might be, and if it's not the right response, you might let them know. And I've seen this where some people will show up really overtly controlling, and some people will be very covertly controlling. So this is an invitation to look at, what do I do when I feel like I need to take control? And that means I've been triggered by some type of a fear. Maybe I have a fear that you're not okay, and so I feel like I have to control you so that you'll be okay, so that therefore I can be okay. That's a lot of how it shows up. It can show up as like really persistent advice giving, hovering. If you hear yourself telling somebody like 20 times on how to do something and they still haven't done it, yeah, that's control. Usually once, sometimes, even if sometimes you don't even need, why am I telling you what to do, right? And the more I work to control another person, the more I lose control over me. And that's the problem with control. When you're controlling other people, you're investing all your energy into something you have no control over. So, what a big waste, when you could be taking that energy and controlling yourself, controlling how you might respond to something that might be challenging, instead of trying to control somebody so that challenging thing doesn't happen. See, I can't control what another person does. And when I give all my energy and all of my power into trying to control something I can't control, I gave my power away to, basically it's wasted. So if I can keep my energy and focus on controlling myself, that's the goal. So advice giving, thinking I know best, telling over and over, repeated nudging, right? These are some of the behaviors. Or it might be where I have to do everything and I can't delegate because it won't turn out the way I need it to turn out. Here's what you find out when you let go of control, because I got that one, spades. Oh my God, there's people who can do this part of it way better than me. And I don't even like doing this. It's like this part of it, I could just delegate this to somebody who's got like talent and skill in this area. And then I get to go do what I have talent and skill in. And we get to get together and have this creative thing. And like, whoa, that's so cool. Yeah. When you're a control freak, you don't get any of that because you got to do it all yourself. And guess what? That's exhausting. So if you're exhausted and you're feeling overworked and underappreciated, and everything's got to be, just so, or you're just afraid the world's going to fall apart, yeah, that might be a control issue. So some of the time it shows up like with people that you do have responsibility for. Like, codependency doesn't really anybody who triggered fear in me. This was my experience. If it was my friend or my husband or my child, if fear was coming up for me, I was probably have some kind of a codependent control response. And what was going on there is I would think to myself, not knowing I was thinking this, unconsciously, believing that this person was ill-equipped to handle what was going on. So I've got to step in, I got to help them. But here's what I found out. Here's the truth. People have their own answers. Everybody has their own information. And even if it's your own child, they have their own information. Now, I'll talk about responsibilities in a minute. They're smart. They'll figure it out. Or they'll get consequences. And because they're smart, they'll figure it out. And sometimes, yeah, it's super scary, especially when kids are on drugs and things like this, like really scary stuff. So how do you find the fine line, specifically around kids and that whole concept? So let me share a little bit from my experience around that. Up until the age of 18, you're the responsible party. You're the parent. And what I've seen and what I went through myself is I wanted to be as a codependent person, this is what got me deep into this work. I wanted to make their feelings okay so that they wouldn't, they would get clean and sober, and I would be able to help them get healthy and emotionally healthy so that I could feel safe that they weren't going to die. Okay, that's kind of what the bottom line is, right? But what actually needed to happen was I needed to be the parent and not try to manage the emotions. What I needed to do was show up and do my part as the parent. So the state I live in and the jurisdiction I live in says I'm responsible for health and welfare. I'm responsible for having a child in school. I'm responsible for if it's a medical condition, addiction's a medical condition, I'm responsible for getting medical care. Okay, so that means help that child get to treatment. That means make sure that child gets into school, even if it means it's a school inside of a juvenile hall. It doesn't, wherever it takes you, you're the responsible party and you have to show up as the responsible party. It is so counterintuitive to a codependent to do the tough thing of being the responsible parent versus trying to control the feelings. This is the game changer when you can own, when you know where the line of responsibility is as a parent. And I'm speaking to parents, what's mine and what's not mine. That's when it can shift, because codependency gets in the way of being a good parent, even though that's not your intention. Your intention is to be a good parent. And yet the very thing you need to do, I always say the loving thing to do, is sometimes the hardest thing to do. Here's some of the tools. Here's some of the tools that I use to this day and for all relationships, not just mother, child. The first thing I want to control is my own awfulizing, using my imagination. Okay, like I love to imagine stuff. I like to write songs. I'm a creative person. I love to use my imagination, but controlling my imagination instead of going into awfulization and fear mongering myself, basically torturing myself. Yeah, knock it off, right? How do I do that? I start walking, I start moving, I move that anxiety out of my body. I get on the life cycle or the Stairmaster or whatever, and I start giving all that energy out, and then I start praying all the way out, getting it out, and then praying all the way back in. So it's like kind of a walking meditation type of thing. That works for me. Language. Empowering them with your language. You're a smart person. You will figure this out. I believe in you. Even when you don't believe it. Sometimes I say that and I'm like, God, I hope I'm right. However, if I say that, it's reminding me that they have their answers inside themselves. I don't have anybody else's answers. That's just the truth. I have nobody else's answers. I'll show you how I get mine. And I've worked at getting mine. So I can show you how I get mine, but it might not work for you. But I'll show you. I'll show you how I do it. Another thing I like to remember is I have a little tool, I call it mine, not mine. And when I journal in the morning and I'm thinking of all the stuff that's going on in my day and I'm kind of figuring out my plan for the day, sometimes I'll say, I should probably do this. And then I'll have to stop and ask, is that mine? That's not mine. If they can do it for themselves, it's not mine. But what might be mine is I'm holding on to some anxiety about that. So I need to look at myself around the anxiety of that. Or it could be, I want to support them in that. What could I do to be loving and supportive without getting in their lane? Right. So mine, not mine is my way of just taking a second glance and making sure I'm staying in my own lane. Yeah. It's pretty hard to drive your car when somebody else is getting in your lane all the time. So if you're the person that's, driving in 4 lanes across the freeway, that's not usually appreciated, right? So controlling ourselves instead of focusing on controlling others, you get the benefit of starting to have that security within yourself so the anxiety level goes down. It takes work and it takes time, but it's doable and it's worth it. It's totally worth it. Yeah, controlling your imagination And if there's anxiety and I'm awfulizing, what am I doing that for? What could I think about? What creative thing could I be thinking about? What could I get curious about? Ask a better question, you'll get a better answer, right? Put that imagination to work in creating something beautiful that you can create and control. And release with love what you can't control. And the anxiety that's coming up, which is the problem isn't what the person's doing, because the person's doing what they're going to do. The problem is I have anxiety about what somebody else is doing or not doing. And that's where it triggers my need to fix, control, do it all. No, I don't have to do it all. I get to ask for help. I get to stay in my lane. I get to expect people to show up and do what they say they're going to do. And if they don't, find somebody else to work with or find somebody else to play with, whatever that is. See, when I control myself, I get to make more choices. I have more choices. And so do they. See, that's how it works. But when you're codependent and you're stuck in, I have to control it so I can feel safe. That's like a prison that I have to stay in to keep you in it. So nobody's free. So if you like this video and you want to support my channel, check out my givingvoicetorecovery.net store, or support me on Patreon. Or if you just want to support me in a super easy, simple way, just hit the subscribe button and pass it on. Thank you. Have you ever found yourself looking for that perfect gift for your friends in recovery? Or maybe someone you know and love is going through a lot of growth and change, and you want to let them know that you're thinking about them and you care about them. Or maybe it's you. Maybe you're looking for your own inspiration. Whatever the case may be, I hope you find the treasure that you're looking for. Thank you again for coming by.